Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to fit your Shimano GRX 400 10-speed rear derailleur. So I'll go ahead, let's run through the steps. Right, so here we have the derailleur. Now this is a clutch rear derailleur, as you can see there, with the on and off lever. So make sure that that's set to off position before you start the installation, just in case. So you've got your barrel adjuster there, so I'll point that out. Then you've got the mounting bolt onto your frame, so that's a 5mm hex head there. Then you've got the cable pinch bolt there, which is a 4mm hex, and then you've got the high and low adjustment screws and the B screw there, and they're 2mm hexes. So I thought I'd just show you that just to make them clear. As you can see, high screw is the top one, low screw is the bottom one, the B screw is that one there. So let's go ahead, let's get it on the bike. So the first thing we'll do is with your 5mm hex head, we want to mount the derailleur to the bike. So what you've got to be aware of is where your derailleur hanger comes down there, point your bit on the end, make sure that's making contact with the hanger at all times. So this is making contact with that at all times. If there's a gap between the two, you won't be able to adjust it properly. So when you screw it on, just get your 5mm, put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads as well before you screw it in, and then make sure that the lower knob there sticking out is making contact with that there on the frame and the hanger. So you can just look as you're screwing it in, so you can just look down the back, make sure that it's touching. So just thread it on. You can thread it in a little way before it goes into the correct place, and just screw it in. And then what you can do is push down on there when it's in the right place, just to make sure that as you nip it up that it's always in contact between the two. Once you've done that, and just get your torque wrench and just torque that up. Say 7N is adequate on that. Let's do that up. Once you're happy with that, that's the actual derailleur mounted onto the bike. So we'll move on to the next step. Right, so once you've mounted the derailleur on there, it will just be hanging like that. Now we'll move on to doing the high and low adjustment screws. So as like I said, the high screw is the top one there. So what you want to do is pushing the derailleur forward like that, so it stops. You're looking at the top guide wheel there, you can see it. What you want to do is, using the high screw, is adjust that wheel so it's underneath, in line with the outside of the teeth on the smallest cog, so on the 11 cog, like that. So yours might come set over here somewhere, say on the second cog in. So what you want to do is 2mm hex head in the high screw, and if you turn it anti-clockwise, so that anti-clockwise, it's moving the guide wheel over towards the 11 tooth. So, and obviously clockwise it's moving it back that way, but more than likely you have to move it anti-clockwise to get it, like I said, in line with the outside there of the 11 tooth at the back. So what I'll do is just turn that anti-clockwise. You can look directly behind the derailleur to make sure it's in line with your eye. It's hard to show on the camera, and then you can just look at it and see where it is, like that. So once you're happy with that one, then what you want to do is pushing down on the cage and pushing across at the same time. Then it'll get the guide wheel in line. You want the guide wheel in line with the largest sprocket on the back. So if you've got 32 or 34 cassette on the back, you want it in line with the largest. So to do that, all you've got to do is go on your low screw. So if you push it over like that and it's not in line, then to turn your, what I'll do is I'll get it out of line for you so that it makes it easy to understand. So if it's, say, underneath the second cog in at the back, then that's obviously not going to be right. You need it underneath the largest to start with. So what you want to do is push it across. If it stops there, it's underneath the second one in, so that's no good. So what you want to do then is just go onto your low screw, turn it a bit anti-clockwise like that, and then check again, and then looking directly from behind, make sure it's underneath largest at the back like that. And that's all those two screws do. They're just the limit screws for underneath the smallest, your 11 tooth, and underneath your largest. That's all those two are doing, that's it. So once you set those up, then we go ahead, we can get the cable put through the pinch bolt there. So before we run the cable in, obviously we've got a brand new cable coming through all the way, full length cable, and then you've got your barrel adjuster there. Just make sure that your barrel adjuster is not wound all the way until it stops. If it is, just back it out a little bit off the bottom, a turn off the bottom first, and then what you do is you just put your cable down through like that, and put your cable end into your barrel adjuster, making sure that it's actually going in properly, and check your any other joints on the cable as well, just make sure they're all the way into the frame. And then it's 4mm hex head, so you slacken off your pinch bolt and put your cable through. So you feed that through like so. So it's going straight through like that. And then before you do up your pinch bolt, make sure that your shifter is shifted down to your 11 at the back. So go up to your shifter, make sure it's shifted all the way down. If you put a new cable in, then it should have been shifted all the way down to start with, otherwise you won't be able to install the new cable. So once you're happy that it's right down on the 11 before you do this, if you don't, then you'll wonder why you've only got some of the gears, because it started, say, 2 gears across because it wasn't shifted all the way down to start with. Then you'll only have 8 gears instead of the 10. Then what you want to do is pull on the cable straight towards the front of the bike. So aim the cable towards the front of the bike, and then while you're pulling on it as tight as you can by hand, snug down the pinch bolt, and then nip it up, make sure it's tight. You don't want the cable to slip, just snug that down so it's definitely got the cable, and then I'll move on to the next step. Right, so we've put the cable up now, we've left the cable, we've still got the full length cable in, and the derailleur is still down on the 11 at the back, so the smallest at the back. So what you want to do now is, this is always hard to show on camera, but you don't need to put the chain on or anything like that. What you want to do is, looking directly down from above, you'll see, it's easier to see with your own eyes obviously than it is on the camera, but you can see the guide wheel there at the top. So all you do is go to your shifter, and looking directly down, shift over, you'll see the guide wheel move. You see that? So you shift over, and then looking down from above, is just keep shifting over, making sure that the gears are going across and they're in line with the cassette. So you go all the way over, make sure you've got all the gears. So you click all the way over, so you're over on the largest at the back like that, making sure obviously when you're looking from behind that the top guide wheel is in line with your say 34 at the back, so you know that's in line. If you're shifting across, so obviously shift up and down a few times just to bed the cable in, so we go up and down a few times like that just to settle the cable in, and then like I said, look down from above. Now when you're shifting across, so you just go one click at a time just and have a look and see if it's anywhere near in line. If it's not, if you go say 2 clicks and the guide wheel there for instance, it's not very hard to show, but I've gone across a couple of clicks there and it's ended up sort of not quite in line with the third sprocket, so it's just off ever so slightly. So what you do then is go to barrel adjuster, and because the chain's not on there, it's easy to do your barrel adjuster because you haven't got the tension of the chain on. So you just look down from above and then you'd screw your barrel adjuster to put some tension on the cable and move your guide wheel so it lines up with the corresponding sprocket. Then you just carry on shifting over again and have another look, the next one over, make sure you're in line, and again like that. So as when you put the chain on, you know that when you start shifting it'll be exactly set up properly. So what I'll do is now I'll get the chain on and we'll try it after we put the chain on. So we've got the chain back on. What I'll do is I'll shift up across to the 34 in this case at the back, just to show you that if you line it up properly they should work in every gear straight away, and you might just need to make a little fine adjustment afterwards, but we need to shift up to the largest now so as we can set the B screw. So I'll shift across and we'll see what happens. Right, so there you go, all of them worked straight away without any problems. So now we'll set the B screw. So again, using your 2mm hex head for that. And what I'll do is I'll just bring the camera in a bit closer so you can see and understand it a bit easier of what it does. So we got the B adjustment screw at the back there of the derailleur, just there, the one on its own. And what that's doing is setting the gap between the guide wheel, and you do this with the chain on like this, and the largest at the back, the 34 in this instance. So it's between there and there, and you just need a gap, about an 8mm gap there for the chain to pass through. You don't want the gap too big because this is critical to the shifting when you're coming down through the gears. This gap here, so you see that's coming off at a nice angle there. The gap's a bit too big, so we can close that up, that gap. So yours could be too close and you need to open it up a little bit, or it could be too far away and you want to close the gap up. So what you do is, if you want to make the gap smaller between there, is you turn it anti-clockwise. So just turn it anti-clockwise for you just so you can see it, like that. You turn it like that. You don't want it tight between that guide wheel and the cassette, it's too tight, the gap. You need to open it up enough so there's nice, like an 8mm gap basically. So the chain comes off the bottom of the cassette nicely onto the, nice and smooth onto that lower, onto the guide wheel. So you can just pedal backwards like that, You see that's coming off a nice angle. You don't want, as I said, you don't want the gap too big, you don't want it too small. About 8mm gap between them is plenty, is fine. You should be able to back pedal like that. The chain shouldn't fall off or anything when you're doing that. Like so. So that's set that gap. Obviously we haven't cut the cable to length or anything yet, we've still got the cable to do. Never cut the cable until you're fully happy with all the gears. What you can do is go ahead and try them again. Now we've made the B screw adjustment, we just run through the gears again, make sure we're happy with it. Right, so as you can see there, it goes up and down the gears, absolutely perfect. So you want to try it on your largest cog at the front as well. If you run a 2x setup, make sure that it works on both of them absolutely perfect. If you're getting any gears as you're shifting, they're just getting slightly hung up between, say you're halfway down the cassette or something, and you're just getting some gears that aren't running absolutely perfect, just go on your barrel adjuster there and just give it a couple of clicks while you're pedaling. Just stay in that gear that's giving you a bit of a problem, and then just make some fine adjustment with the barrel adjuster. That's what it's there for, if you've got any problems. So once you're 100% happy with everything, what you want to do is cut your cable to length. You don't need to leave too much, because the cable, put it up on the largest and then do your cable. Make sure there's not too much, obviously, because it'd be going in your spokes and you wonder what the noise is when you start riding. So you just snip that off. You're going to leave about 20mm on the cable, and then cut it off, and we'll put a stop on the end. So snip that off and get yourself a stop. Put that on, just crimp it on, stop the cable fraying. Just crimp that on there, like so. So that's the installation all complete now. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.